This is EDL 851, Module 8, Legal Aspects of Teacher Evaluation. So in Article 1, it talked about Every Student Succeeds Act, and that ended the federal government's involvement in the evaluation process for teachers in the U.S. And it really gave power back to the states. States were able to decide what kind of evaluation system they wanted. The only requirements that they were given by the federal government were to submit descriptions of their evaluation systems to the U.S. Department of Education. And there must be multiple methods of evaluating each teacher. And this really allowed teachers to have more of a say in the evaluation process because it was more of a collaboration between state and local districts talking to teachers on what they wanted to see in the evaluation process. So it really gave them a voice in the way that they are being evaluated. In Article 2, it provided a breakdown of some of the most important litigation cases discussing teacher evaluations and their outcomes. So some of these lawsuits questioned how new evaluation systems were put into place, and that occurred in Louisiana and New Mexico. And then a couple of these lawsuits contested key grading components. Tennessee and Florida, the cases were saying that test scores should not be involved in the evaluation process of teachers. And then in New York, that lawsuit questioned the system's fairness. They didn't really put into account effects of poverty on children and how their outcome of learning would be different. So that lawsuit just talked about the fairness of the evaluation process in New York. So Article 3 really talked about what teacher evaluation is. So it's a formal process of reviewing and rating a teacher's effectiveness in the classroom. And due to inconsistency, there has been a lot of debate about teacher evaluations in recent years. This inconsistency is because there isn't a universal model for teacher evaluation, even from state to state, city to city. I teach in Wichita, and if I chose to teach in Goddard instead, it's a 10-minute drive from Wichita, but I'm sure their evaluation process is completely different than ours. So it's just really inconsistent that way, but that can also be a good thing. Some models fit to teachers differently. So that could be a positive too. Most of these models are based on scores of several components, and it is a federal requirement to include student test scores. They do not require a certain percentage of the evaluation to be based on student scores, but they do require that it is included in the evaluation process. So just a little feedback from what the unions thought when teacher evaluations first came about. They thought that it was mostly really valuable feedback for teachers that they weren't receiving before. However, they did oppose the inclusion of student test scores. They didn't think that it was fair to include student test scores in the evaluation process. But, however, teacher evaluation, the whole process is a constant state of testing and refinement. And that's what's really great about this process is we can change what's not working and improve what is. So specifically in Wichita Public Schools, we are evaluated on the Marzano Focused Teacher Evaluation Model, and it's shown there on the left. That's what we are shown every year. This came about, I think, about 3 years ago, and there was previously 23 observed elements. There are 23 bullet points there, and that's what we could be evaluated on. However, this year they revised it to 10 observed elements. So within all of those bullet points, there are 10 specific ones that we are evaluated on. So in our evaluation year, I'm a second year teacher, so for one more year I will be evaluated just to get through the probationary period. But there is one formal observation, and in that there's a pre-conference where you meet with your administrator that is going to observe you, and you just talk about what documents you have to provide them. You have to send them a lesson plan of the lesson that they are going to observe at least 24 hours in advance of the lesson. And then they are really good about going over what you need to focus on to get a good score. And it's really just a time to talk about what's going to happen, so you're really really knowledgeable about what is going to occur. And then the administrator comes in and observes the lesson and takes notes and data, and you get a score for your formal evaluation pretty much immediate. It's a pretty quick email that comes back telling us what score we get. And all evaluations through Marzano are based off of a 5-tier scale, with innovating being the best, and applying being the next step down from that, and then developing the next step down from applying. And really they tell us that they want us to be developing or higher. And so after the observed lesson, we have a post-conference where we go back in and have a meeting with our administrator, and that's a time when we just review and reflect on the lesson, how we thought it went, how the administrator thought it went, and that is a time when you can dispute the score that you do receive. If you think that you deserve a better score, then they listen, and you have to give factual evidence, but they listen to your opinion, and sometimes they do change your score based on you providing evidence. You're also required to do one informal observation, and that is unannounced, and it's at least 20 minutes. So they just come in and see what's going on and just sit in for a little bit, and you are graded on the same 5-tier scale. And then you're required to get 7 to 15 walkthroughs throughout the year, and those are unannounced. And they just come in and stay for a few minutes and see what's going on, and you're again evaluated on that 5-tier scale. But that's 7 to 15 walkthroughs throughout the year that you are actually evaluated for. Now they can come in as much as they want, and you are scored, but those scores don't go towards your renewal of your license for your evaluation. So in the case of teacher recourse, if we feel like we had an inaccurate evaluation, we can dispute the observation score. Like I said, you do have to provide factual evidence. You can't just go in there and demand that they change your score. You have to provide some sort of defense. And most of the time they're really understanding about where you're coming from, and they'll either decide, yeah, I completely agree with you, that's fine, we can up your score, or they decide, no, I don't agree with your point, so we're just going to keep your score the way it is. But they're really great at listening to your opinion and taking that into consideration. And if you really feel like it's an inaccurate evaluation, you can choose to not sign the observation form. And then if it's a big issue, and you are a member of Wichita Public School Teacher Union, you can call your union rep and get them involved. And again, in the case of an unjust termination, your first call is your union rep if you are a member. So the lawsuit that I chose to discuss is Gillett versus USD 276. And this was the case of Jessie Mae Gillett. She was a teacher in USD 276 for 7 years, so she was tenured. And in March of 1977, so this has been a while, the court case happened in 1980, but she got notice of non-renewal of her teaching contract in March of 1977. And they, at the time, said that it was due to pending criminal charges of shoplifting in Nebraska against her. 2 separate counts, 2 separate dates. And so she filed a request for a due process hearing, which is fine. She has the right to do that. But then the school district came back and gave her a list of supplemental reasons for non-renewal. Some of the items on that list included accusing her of stealing money, accused her of not being able to sufficiently teach her students, and also the physical inability and mental inability. So those were a lot of pretty serious accusations coming at her, when the initial accusation was just because of her pending criminal charges. So she took that to the school board, and the school board decided in the defense of the school district. And so she appealed the school board's decision, and it went to the district court. In the district court, the trial there, they heard all the evidence and decided that the supplemental reasons for non-renewal weren't eligible to be heard in court because they weren't provided to her initially. If they would have provided those reasons initially, instead of the pending criminal charges against her, then the school district would have won the lawsuit. But because they didn't give those reasons right from the beginning, the trial court ordered that the teacher be reinstated with back pay. So Jessie Mae Gillett did win that case over USD 276. So as a future building leader, I think the most important thing is just to stay updated through professional development, through online learning, taking classes, reading books, just staying accurate and updated on information. And then using your resources and talking to people. There are experts in everything. So I think the best way to protect against potential lawsuits is to get people knowledgeable in that field involved. Accurate reporting. So if something is happening that could potentially lead to a lawsuit, I would make sure that I was writing everything down, time stamping it, dating it, and just keeping an accurate record of everything that's going on. And then also speaking to union representatives. This doesn't have to be because of a lawsuit. They can just be getting some evidence or some information from union representatives. It's not like building principals can't talk to union representatives too. So just using all your resources is really important, and collaborating with everybody, because there are people who are experts in a lot of things, and I may not know everything. So I think just being able to talk to other people and get information is the most important part of being an effective building leader. Thank you for watching.